Bob Mueller warning publicly that some of the information his team, his investigators are gathering could, he worries, end up in the hands of Russian intelligence. Now, all this has to do with 13 Russians and 3 companies that Mueller's already charged for the election meddling. You remember that occurred back in February. Now, lawyers for one of the companies have already met with the special counsel team, but Mueller wants to go further. This is what the new filing does. It asks a judge to bar those people from potentially handing over, leaking, or doing anything with that information to these other charged individuals. He argues in the court filing, releasing the information would, quote, assist foreign intelligence services, particularly those of the Russian Federation, a.k.a. Putin, and suggesting that Mueller knows other people who could be charged next or ongoing interference. And this is the part I'm going to dig into with my expert guest, because he says he identifies, quote, uncharged individuals and entities that the government believes are continuing to engage in interference operations like those charged in the present indictment. Nick Ackerman is a former Watergate special prosecutor. Shelby Holliday, a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, who's been all over this story. Nick, this is new, and this is Bob Mueller trying to protect his operation. What does it mean?
Well, what he's trying to protect are his investigative techniques, how he goes about doing an investigation, what his agents are doing, and what other agents have done within the government to uncover the evidence that they have in this case. It goes to possible other cooperating witnesses, other possible informants. What he's concerned about is if somebody was able, foreign intelligence was able to look at this entire file, they'd be able to divine from that all kinds of things, like what they should do to better protect themselves if they're going to try and interfere with our elections, what they should do to try and identify other cooperating informants and sources within their own government that might be giving up information to the U.S. government. I mean, this is not information that's necessarily classified.
Right.
But it's important information in terms of the government's ability to investigate these kinds of cases.
When you see Bob Mueller do this, and the headline to some people is, okay, he's referring to ongoing Russian meddling, some people might be like, yeah, I heard about that. It's like they keep doing it. Why legally does he say that here? Why does he say, and again, I'm reading from this brand new filing, he believes, this is an allegation, that they are, quote, continuing to engage in interference operations like those charged in the indictment?
I think he has evidence that that's ongoing. I think he's got people who are telling him that. He's got investigations that are showing that through...
Could those be new crimes?
Oh, of course. It could be an ongoing crime. It could be coming from national security wiretaps. It could be from a whole series of host informants that they're using. And so they want to protect how they're going about doing this. They don't want to advertise to the world, this is how we uncover our evidence, this is how we make our cases. And that's what they're trying to protect here.
I also thought it's interesting in here, he talks about the relationships of charged and uncharged parties, foreign entities, and governments. I don't know if that means there is an uncharged government. Nick said it could be a Russian government agency.
I think it's a government agency.
That's a big word. But another thing that he points out in this, and I think it's important, is not only would it identify perhaps uncharged individuals and also the sources and methods, but this discovery also contains a massive amount of information about American victims who thought that they were communicating with U.S. accounts. Instead, they were Russian accounts. We've reported at the Journal a lot about people who are caught up in these weird schemes that the Russians were involved in, and it's very embarrassing for their information to be public.
Well, and you're putting your finger on an important point here that Mueller's pursuing, which is when Americans got mixed up in this, were they unwitting, which makes them victims, or were any of them witting, were they uncharged entities who are involved in America?
That's a really good point.
Who wanted to cooperate?
That's a very good point. So that could also be
collude, if you want to use the
right.
word.
He might be wanting to protect victims and also people who could be charged with crimes. But we've talked to a lot of Americans who helped Russians set up some of their rallies, who participated in schemes, fake propaganda podcasts. A lot of them, when we call them, are embarrassed that they were, in fact, communicating with Russian accounts. So, therefore, the special counsel doesn't want their names out there. And it could put a target on their back.
It's hard to keep up with real podcasts, let alone fake podcasts. That's a lot of podcasting.
So much fake podcasting.
So, fake news. I want to move to one other important story. I mean, the Russia stuff here is huge. We got it into our show as breaking news. But the other big thing you should know about, there's these new financial numbers that reveal Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump made $82 million in outside income last year, including $3.9 million alone Ivanka got from the Trump Hotel in D.C., which has been accused of conflicts of interest. All this as the family talks up how they're not taking any government salary.
He's a high-quality person. He works for nothing, just so, nobody ever reports that, but he gets zero. He doesn't get a salary, nor does Ivanka.
Both she and her husband, Jared, have roles in the White House, so you're basically a dual-income family.
Actually, we don't take an income.
You don't?
So we've waived our salaries, so we are a no-income family right now.
I mean, it's so funny, as you know. It's a very hilarious thing to be a no-income family pulling down $82 million. I wonder,
Ha, ha, ha.
ha,
Right.
ha, ha. I wonder what you think this does as we get the facts. It's almost like there's a part of the Trump-Ivanka nexus that doesn't care or understand that there is transparency rules, which they brought on themselves. I mean, I don't know if you ever watched the A-Team, but Mr. T would always say, you brought this on yourself. If they hadn't come into government to take these special plum nepotistic positions, we wouldn't be learning as much about the financial disclosures. At some point, do they look at this and say, number one, wow, we have to give up a lot of information, and number two, do you think this reflects a real corruption conflict of interest for the White House?
Well, I just think it's bizarre that they're spinning it in this way when you can turn around and say, are you benefiting from patents that you're getting from China? Are you benefiting possibly from a bailout for Jared Kushner's building in New York? There are a lot of different ways that it appears as if they are benefiting financially. So I just think you bring it on yourself when you talk about how you're a no-income family, yet millions of Americans can turn around and say, I'm not so sure that's the case.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, the appearances here are terrible. I mean, when the Chinese government announces that they've issued 4 more trademarks to Ivanka's brand when she's manufacturing her stuff all overseas, including China and the Far East, I mean, the obvious question is, would she have gotten that if her name was Ivanka Jones?
Right.
I doubt it.
Right.
I doubt it. And that's the problem, is that people are going to consistently think that she is making money, as well as everybody in this administration is making mega bucks off of the government. That's what they're doing. They're using this as an ability to line their own pockets and increase their income, which is not what government service is about.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.